The autumn rain fell in steady sheets against the windows of Boston Memorial Hospital's pediatric ward as Rebecca Morgan completed her notes on 3-year-old Jimmy Peterson's chart. The boy's fever had finally broken after 2 days, bringing a rare moment of victory in her 12-hour shift. She brushed a strand of honey-brown hair from her forehead, tucking it behind her ear with the practiced motion of someone who rarely had time for vanity. Rebecca glanced at the industrial clock mounted on the wall, 6:47 p.m. She was already 17 minutes late to pick up her son from Happy Hearts daycare. Again. A familiar knot of guilt tightened in her stomach as she hurried to finish her documentation. The ward was short-staffed as usual these days, with budget cuts looming like storm clouds on the horizon. Rumors of layoffs had spread through the hospital corridors faster than any contagion. "Doctor, Winters wants another set of labs for bed 4. Nurse Jenkins announced, dropping another chart onto Rebecca's already towering stack of paperwork. "I'm already late picking up Mikey," Rebecca replied, fatigue evident in her voice. "Can someone else? Everyone else is tied up with the flu cases in beds 7 through 10. Jenkins interrupted her tone, leaving no room for negotiation. "Sorry, Morgan. We're all drowning here." Rebecca nodded, swallowing her protest. 3 years as a single mother had taught her that some battles weren't worth fighting. She'd transferred from emergency medicine to pediatrics, hoping for more predictable hours, but the hospital's ongoing staffing crisis had eliminated any advantage. At least here she could use the skills she'd honed in the ER without the constant trauma that had begun to haunt her dreams after Mikey was born. Another 43 minutes passed before Rebecca finally escaped the fluorescent purgatory of the hospital. The rain had intensified, drumming against her beaten Honda Civic as she navigated Boston's congested streets toward the daycare. Her phone buzzed with a text message at a stoplight. "Mrs. Morgan, we close at 7. Mikey is the only child still here. Please hurry." Miss Perkins. The knot in Rebecca's stomach tightened further. Daycare late fees were $1 per minute luxury pricing for a woman who carefully counted every quarter that went into the laundromat machines each Sunday. Her bank account held exactly $237.14 until next Friday's paycheck, which was already earmarked for the minimum payment on her crushing student loan debt, groceries, and the electric bill that had arrived with a threatening red stamp. The daycare's lights were still on when Rebecca pulled into the small parking lot, 7:32 p.m. She rushed through the rain, her scrubs already damp beneath her thin jacket, and found Mikey sitting alone at a small table, meticulously coloring a picture with Ms. Perkins hovering nearby, her expression a carefully neutral mask that barely concealed her annoyance. "Mommy." Mikey's face lit up when he spotted her. He abandoned his crayons and raced toward her, a blur of energy despite the late hour. Rebecca knelt to catch him in her arms, inhaling the scent of crayons and apple juice that clung to his dark curls. "I'm so sorry I'm late, buddy," she whispered against his hair. "I made you a picture," Mikey announced proudly, wiggling free to retrieve his artwork. "It's us and a dragon." 32 minutes, Ms. Perkins stated flatly, already writing up the late fee slip. "That's $32 added to next week's payment." Rebecca nodded, avoiding the woman's gaze as she accepted the paper. Another expense she couldn't afford. "Oh, and this came for you earlier," Ms. Perkins added, her tone shifting to curiosity as she handed over a thick manila envelope. "A courier delivered it, said it was important. Seemed very professional." Rebecca frowned at the envelope. Her name was typed on a label, the return address listing Harrington and Pierce Attorneys at Law with a Manhattan address. Her heart skipped a beat. Legal correspondence was never good news for someone living paycheck to paycheck. "Thank you," she murmured, tucking the envelope into her bag while helping Mikey into his jacket. "Say goodbye, Mikey." "Bye, Miss Perkins. Tomorrow I'll finish my dragon, okay?" The woman's expression softened slightly at Mikey's enthusiasm. "Of course, Michael. I look forward to seeing it." Rain pounded the windshield as Rebecca drove home, her mind racing through possibilities. Was it about her student loans? The 2 payments she'd missed last winter, when Mikey had pneumonia and she'd taken unpaid leave to care for him. Or perhaps the hospital was being sued and she was being subpoenaed as a witness for some case she could barely remember. "Mommy, I'm hungry," Mikey announced from his car seat, breaking through her spiraling thoughts. "Spaghetti night," she offered with forced cheerfulness. "With the special sauce?" His dark eyes, so like on his father's, widened with hope. With the special sauce, she confirmed, referring to the jarred pasta sauce she doctored with extra garlic and a pinch of oregano, a small deception that transformed the cheapest brand into a treat in her son's eyes. Their apartment building in Dorchester had seen better days. The elevator was perpetually out of service, forcing Rebecca to carry both Mikey and his backpack up 3 flights of stairs. The hallway lights flickered ominously, casting strange shadows on the peeling wallpaper. Mrs. Abernathy from 3B poked her head out as they passed, her ancient face creased with concern. "Package came for you, dear. Looks important. I signed for it." The elderly woman disappeared back into her apartment before returning with a small box bearing the logos of an upscale Boston jeweler. "Special occasion. Must be a mistake," Rebecca replied, puzzled, but accepting the package. "Thank you, Mrs. Abernathy." Inside their small one-bedroom apartment, Rebecca settled Mikey with his coloring books at their scratched kitchen table while she prepared dinner. The apartment was clean but worn second-hand furniture arranged with care, walls decorated with Mikey's artwork in dollar store frames. A life assembled from remnants and sale items, held together by sheer determination. While the pasta boiled, Rebecca placed both mysterious deliveries on the counter, eyeing them warily. The jeweler's box seemed most perplexing. She hadn't ordered anything, and certainly not from somewhere so expensive. With cautious fingers, she opened it to reveal an antique pocket watch gleaming gold with intricate engravings. A small card inside simply read, "For Michael on his 3rd birthday. May it guide him when I cannot." There was no signature. Rebecca's hands trembled as she set down the watch. Today was indeed Mikey's birthday. They had had cupcakes at breakfast to celebrate, promising a trip to the park on Saturday for his official party since she had to work today. But who would send such an expensive gift, and how did they know? A terrible suspicion formed in her mind as she reached for the manila envelope, tearing it open with unsteady fingers. Inside was a stack of legal documents and a handwritten letter on expensive stationery. "Dear Ms. Morgan, it is with deep regret that I inform you of the passing of Mr. Nathaniel Richardson, founder and CEO of Richardson Technologies. In accordance with Mr. Richardson's final wishes, I am contacting you regarding your son, Michael Morgan, who has been named as the primary beneficiary of Mr. Richardson's estate, valued at approximately $50 million. The letter slipped from Rebecca's fingers, floating to the linoleum floor like a fallen leaf. Nathaniel Richardson. The Nathaniel Richardson. The tech mogul whose face had occasionally graced magazine covers and business news segments. The man worth billions, whose death in a yachting accident had been reported just last week. The same Nathaniel who had rented the apartment below hers 4 years ago for 6 months. Who had introduced himself simply as Nate, a software engineer working remotely. Whose kind smile and thoughtful conversations had slowly broken through the walls she'd built around herself after her parents' deaths. Whose brief but intense relationship had given her Mikey before he disappeared without explanation, leaving only a note saying he was sorry but this was for the best. "Mommy, the water's spilling!" Mikey's alarmed voice snapped her back to reality. Rebecca lunged for the stove, pulling the boiling pot from the burner. Her mind reeled as she mechanically drained the pasta, stirred in the sauce, and set a small plate in front of her son. Nathaniel Richardson. Not the struggling software engineer who'd borrowed her umbrella and returned it with a coffee and muffin. Not the man who'd fixed her temperamental laptop and spent hours discussing classic novels with her on the building's rooftop. But a billionaire in hiding. A man with secrets. A man who had now left his fortune to the son he'd never met. "Can I watch cartoons while I eat?" Mikey asked, oblivious to his mother's turmoil. "Just this once," she agreed distantly, returning to the scattered papers on the counter. The legal documents confirmed the letter's claims. DNA confirmation would be part of the inheritance process, but Mr. Harrington, the attorney, seemed confident about Mikey's paternity. There was a trust fund, property holdings around the world, and controlling interest in Richardson Technologies, all now belonging to Mikey, with Rebecca as trustee until he turned 25. Beneath the formal documents lay another sealed envelope with her name written in a familiar hand. Rebecca's heart clenched as she recognized Nathaniel's handwriting. With trembling fingers, she broke the seal. "Rebecca, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I owe you an explanation for my absence in your and Mikey's lives. The simple truth is that I stayed away to protect you both. My family, particularly my brother Harrison, is dangerous. The Richardson fortune has a dark history, and I've spent years trying to legitimize our company and break free from that past. When we met, I was living under an assumed name, trying to escape my reality for just a little while. Then I learned you were pregnant, and I knew that acknowledging our child would put both of you in danger. So I watched from afar, making sure you were provided for anonymously. The reduced rent, the scholarship fund that covered your nursing program, the anonymous donation to Mikey's daycare, that was me trying to help without exposing you to risk. Now that I'm gone, Mikey is my heir. I've put every possible legal protection in place, but I fear it won't be enough. Harrison will come for him for the money, the company, all of it. Trust no one from the Richardson family. I've arranged for security, but you must be vigilant. My attorneys will help you access the funds and protection I've arranged. The watch I've left for Mikey contains more than just a timepiece. When the time is right, you'll understand. I'm sorry for everything I couldn't be for both of you. Nathaniel. Rebecca read the letter 3 times, her dinner forgotten, as the implications sank in. The mysterious financial aids that had appeared at her most desperate moments, never quite enough to lift her out of struggle, but always just sufficient to keep her afloat, had been Nathaniel all along. He hadn't abandoned them completely. He'd been watching, helping from the shadows. But now he was gone, and according to his letter, he'd made enemies of his own family. Enemies who might come for her son. Rebecca moved to the living room doorway, watching Mikey giggle at cartoon antics, his small face illuminated by the television's glow. 3 years old today, so small, so innocent. And now, according to a stack of papers, one of the wealthiest children in America, and possibly in danger because of it. The television program suddenly cut to breaking news. Rebecca froze as Nathaniel Richardson's face appeared on screen. The news anchor's voice carried clearly into the small apartment. New developments in the death of tech billionaire Nathaniel Richardson. Sources close to the investigation now question whether the yachting accident that claimed Richardson's life last week was truly accidental. Richardson Technologies stock plummeted today following rumors of a previously unknown heir to the Richardson fortune, throwing the company's future into uncertainty. Richardson's brother Harrison issued a statement today. The screen showed another man similar to Nathaniel in height and build, but with colder eyes and a rigid posture. His voice was measured, authoritative. My brother's death is a tragedy for our family and for the technology world. Any rumors about succession issues are premature and inappropriate during this time of mourning. Richardson Technologies remains under stable leadership, and we ask for privacy as we grieve. A chill ran through Rebecca as she studied Harrison Richardson's face. There was something calculating in his expression, something that made her instinctively want to gather Mikey in her arms and run. Was this the danger Nathaniel had warned about? Her phone rang, startling her from her thoughts. An unknown number with a Manhattan area code. Ms. Morgan, Walter Harrington speaking. I trust you have received my correspondence. Rebecca glanced at Mikey, still absorbed in his cartoons, then lowered her voice. Yes, just now. Mr. Harrington, is this some kind of joke? I assure you it's not. Nathaniel was most explicit in his instructions regarding Michael. But why? Ms. Morgan, I don't mean to alarm you, but this isn't a conversation we should have over unsecured lines. There are complications regarding Nathaniel's death and his estate. I'd like to arrange a meeting as soon as possible. Tomorrow, perhaps. The urgency in his tone sent another wave of unease through Rebecca. I have work and Mikey has daycare. I can't just... Ms. Morgan, Harrington interrupted, his voice dropping. I don't wish to frighten you, but there may be people already looking for you and Michael. Nathaniel's precautions were extensive for good reason. Please, I can send a car for you tonight. Rebecca's gaze darted to the window, suddenly aware of how exposed they were. The thin curtains did little to block the view from outside. Was someone watching even now? I need time to think, she said finally, to process all this. Of course, Harrington replied, though she could hear his disapproval. But please be careful. Use the number on my card if you notice anything unusual. Anything at all, and Miss Morgan. The watch, keep it close. It's more valuable than you know. The call ended, leaving Rebecca standing in her small apartment, the weight of Nathaniel's secrets pressing down on her. Outside, the rain continued to fall, washing away the last normal day of her life. Everything had changed with the arrival of an envelope and a mysterious watch. Her son was now an heir to a fortune built on what Nathaniel had called a dark history. Mommy, I'm done eating, Mikey called from the kitchen table. Can I have ice cream? Rebecca smiled despite her turmoil. It is your birthday, isn't it? I think we have some chocolate hidden in the freezer. Later, after Mikey was tucked into bed with his favorite stuffed dinosaur, Rebecca sat at their small kitchen table, Nathaniel's letter, and the pocket watch before her. The watch gleamed in the dim light, its intricate engravings forming patterns that seemed almost like code rather than mere decoration. She turned it over in her hands, wondering what secrets it might hold beyond its obvious value. A soft click caught her attention as her fingers brushed against what appeared to be a hidden latch. The back of the watch sprung open, revealing not the expected mechanical workings, but a small compartment containing a tiny memory card and a folded slip of paper with a series of numbers and letters coordinates and what appeared to be a password. Rebecca stared at the discovery, Nathaniel's words echoing in her mind. The watch contains more than just a timepiece. When the time is right, you'll understand. A sudden noise from the hallway outside their apartment made her start, footsteps pausing outside her door. Then silence. Rebecca held her breath, the watch clutched tightly in her hand. After a moment, the footsteps continued past, but the damage was done. Paranoia had taken root. She moved to the window, carefully peering through a gap in the curtains. The rain-slicked street below seemed normal at first glance, but then she noticed it, a dark sedan parked across the street, its engine running, windows tinted. As she watched, the headlights flashed once, twice before the vehicle pulled away from the curb and disappeared into the night. A coincidence, she told herself. Boston had thousands of dark sedans. Yet Nathaniel's warning rang in her ears, Harrison will come for him. Rebecca returned to the table, gathered the documents and watch, and locked them in the small fireproof box where she kept their passports and birth certificates. Sleep would not come easily tonight, but decisions would have to be made in the morning. About Harrington, about the inheritance, about how to protect Mikey from dangers she didn't fully understand. As she passed Mikey's bed on her way to the bathroom, Rebecca paused to watch her son sleep. His dark curls splayed against the pillow, his breathing deep and even, one small hand clutching his dinosaur. Just hours ago, her greatest worry had been making next month's rent payment and avoiding the hospital's rumored layoffs. Now she had 50 million new reasons to worry, and a powerful family who might be willing to harm a 3-year-old boy to keep their fortune. Rebecca leaned down and pressed a gentle kiss to Mikey's forehead. I'll keep you safe, she whispered, whatever it takes. Outside their apartment building, the dark sedan circled the block and returned to its position, headlights extinguished. Inside, a man spoke quietly into a phone. Yes, we've confirmed the address. The Morgan woman and the child are here. A pause as he listened to instructions from the other end. Understood, Mr. Richardson. We'll continue surveillance. No action tonight. The rain fell harder as the night deepened, washing away the last traces of Rebecca Morgan's ordinary life, leaving only uncertainty and danger in its wake. The inheritance meant nothing if they weren't alive to use it. The true value of what Nathaniel had left behind, and the real reason his brother might kill it, remained hidden, a secret waiting to be uncovered. But morning would come, bringing with it decisions that couldn't be postponed, and threats that wouldn't simply disappear with the night. The game had already begun. Dawn crept across Boston's skyline, painting the rain-soaked city in hues of amber and gold. Rebecca had barely slept, spending most of the night alternating between watching over Mikey and researching Nathaniel Richardson online. The details she uncovered only deepened her unease. Richardson Technologies had revolutionized encryption software over the past decade, securing government contracts worth billions. Their proprietary algorithms protected everything from banking systems to classified military communications. The company's market value had soared under Nathaniel's leadership, making the Richardson family one of the wealthiest in America. But there were whispers, too. Rumors of shady early investments, connections to government black projects, and a family history that seemed deliberately obscured from public record. Several financial blogs questioned how Samuel Richardson, Nathaniel's grandfather, had acquired the seed capital to start the company during the Cold War era. One conspiracy theory site even suggested ties to intelligence agencies that Rebecca initially dismissed as paranoid fantasy. Yet Nathaniel's warning about his family's dark history made her wonder. A soft knock at her bedroom door made Rebecca start. Mikey stood in the doorway, his dinosaur clutched in one hand, his dark curls tousled from sleep. "Mommy, I'm hungry," he announced, rubbing his eyes with his free hand. "And Rex is hungry too." Rebecca forced a smile, closing her laptop. Well, we can't have a hungry dinosaur, can we? How about some birthday pancakes? Mikey's eyes widened. With chocolate chips. Is there any other kind worth making? She replied, rising to scoop him into her arms. As she prepared breakfast, Rebecca tried to maintain normalcy, but her gaze kept drifting to the window. The dark sedan was gone, but a different vehicle, a gray SUV, now occupied the same spot across the street. Coincidence. She couldn't afford to believe so anymore. The hospital had granted her request for an emergency personal day without much resistance, a small mercy she attributed to her perfect attendance record. Now she had to decide her next move. Meet with Harrington, go to the police. The coordinates from the watch's hidden compartment nagged at her. What would she find there, Mommy? You're burning it, Mikey pointed out, interrupting her thoughts. The pancake in the pan had indeed gone from golden to charred around the edges. Oops, Rebecca said quickly, flipping it onto a plate. This one's for the garbage monster. Mikey giggled, a sound that momentarily cut through her anxiety. Whatever happened, she had to protect that laugh, that innocence. After breakfast, Rebecca packed a small bag with snacks, extra clothes for Mikey, and their passports. The memory card from the watch she tucked into her bra, the safest place she could think to hide it. The watch itself she secured in her pocket. Every decision now carried weight she'd never had to consider before. We're going on a little adventure today, she told Mikey as she helped him into his jacket. How does that sound? With dragons, he asked hopefully. Maybe not real dragons, but we'll see some interesting things, she promised, checking the peephole before opening their door. The hallway was empty, but Rebecca couldn't shake the feeling of being watched as they descended the stairs and exited through the building's rear entrance. She'd chosen this route deliberately, hoping to avoid the SUV she'd spotted earlier. Once outside, she hurried Mikey toward the T-station 3 blocks away, opting for public transportation over her own car, which might be recognized or tracked. The coordinates from the watch led to an address in South Boston, an industrial area that had seen better days. As their train rumbled toward the destination, Rebecca wrestled with doubt. Was she being paranoid? Had grief twisted Nathaniel's perception of his family? But the SUV outside her apartment, coming so soon after she'd received the inheritance notification, couldn't be dismissed as coincidence. The storage facility that matched the coordinates was surrounded by a chain-link fence topped with barbed wire, its faded sign promising secure storage solutions. Rebecca approached the entrance, Mikey's hand firmly in hers, studying the keypad lock that protected the gate. Good morning, ma'am, a voice called from the small office adjacent to the gate. An elderly security guard peered at them through thick glasses. Can I help you? Rebecca hesitated. I'm here to access a unit, she said cautiously. It belonged to a friend. The guard nodded. Name and unit number. The name would be Nathaniel. She paused, realizing he likely wouldn't have used his real name. Actually, I'm not sure what name he used, but I have the access code. The guard's expression grew suspicious. Sorry, ma'am, but I can't just let you. Rebecca pulled out the pocket watch, showing him the engraved initials on the back NR. Something in the guard's demeanor shifted. That's the Richardson piece, he murmured, recognition dawning. You're the one he said might come. He told you about me. The guard shook his head. Not by name, just said someday a woman might come with his watch and I should help her. He glanced at Mikey. Didn't mention a little one, though. He's my son, and Rebecca said, drawing Mikey closer. The guard studied them both for a long moment, his gaze lingering on Mikey's dark curls and eyes so similar to Nathaniel's. I see the resemblance, he finally said. Unit 42B, through the gate all the way to the back, last row on the right. Thank you, Rebecca said, relief washing over her. Ma'am, the guard called as she turned to go. Mr. Nate was a good man, always polite, always remembered my birthday with a card. Whatever you're looking for in there, be careful with it. The warning sent a chill through Rebecca as she punched in the code from the watch's hidden note. The gate swung open with a metallic groan, allowing them entry into a maze of identical storage units. Is this a castle, Mommy? Mikey asked, looking around at the long rows of metal doors. Sort of, Rebecca replied, navigating through the complex, a place where people keep special things safe. Unit 42B was larger than the others, its doors secured with both a keypad and a traditional padlock. The code from the watch worked on the electronic lock, but the padlock required a key she didn't possess. Damn it, she muttered. then caught herself as Mikey looked up. Sorry, buddy, we need a key. Like this one, Mikey asked, pointing to the watch in her hand. Rebecca stared at the antique timepiece, turning it over in her fingers. The stem that would normally be used to wind the watch seemed unusual, thicker than expected, with subtle notches along its length. Could it be she carefully pulled the stem out and examined it? Sure enough, the end was shaped like a key. Mikey, you're a genius, she whispered, inserting the stem into the padlock. It fit perfectly, turning with a satisfying click. The heavy door rolled upward to reveal a space about the size of a small garage. Unlike most storage units crammed with forgotten furniture or boxed belongings, this one contained only a few carefully arranged items, a metal desk with a computer setup, several filing cabinets, a small safe, and a cot in the corner with a neatly folded blanket. What is this place? Rebecca wondered aloud, stepping inside. The air was stale but not unpleasant, suggesting the unit had a ventilation system and hadn't been abandoned long. A secret hideout, Mikey declared, excitement coloring his voice as he darted inside to explore. Careful, don't touch anything yet, Rebecca cautioned, closing the door behind them. A quick inspection revealed a light switch which illuminated the space with fluorescent brightness and an air conditioning unit that hummed to life when activated. The computer on the desk was a high-end model, its multiple monitors currently dark. Rebecca approached it hesitantly, noting the lack of dust. This wasn't a forgotten storage space. It had been maintained, prepared for someone's eventual arrival. For her arrival. Mommy, look, Mikey called, pointing to a small refrigerator into the corner. Can I have a juice? Rebecca checked inside, finding it stocked with bottled water, juice boxes, and non-perishable snacks. Just one, she agreed, handing him an apple juice while she surveyed the rest of the unit. The filing cabinets were locked, likely requiring the same watch key. The safe bore no obvious keyhole, only a fingerprint scanner that glowed faintly red when she approached. On the desk beside the computer sat a framed photograph turned face down. Rebecca picked it up, her breath catching as she recognized herself in Nathaniel, taken during one of their rooftop conversations 4 years ago. She hadn't even known he'd captured the moment. Is that my daddy? Mikey asked suddenly, at her elbow, juice box in hand. Rebecca's heart clenched. Yes, she said softly. This was your father. Mikey studied the photo with solemn curiosity. He looks like me. He does, Rebecca agreed, fighting back sudden tears. He had the same clever brain too. Setting the photo aside, Rebecca turned her attention to the computer. The memory card from the watch might be meant for this system. She inserted it into a slot and powered on the machine. The screen flickered to life, displaying a password prompt. Rebecca entered the code from the watch's hidden note, holding her breath. Access granted. The screen filled with folders, each labeled with clinical precision: financial records, family history, Project Archangel, Rebecca and Mikey, contingency plans, and more. Rebecca clicked on the folder bearing their names, first finding hundreds of photographs documenting moments she'd never realized were being captured. Mikey's first steps in the park, his second birthday at the community center, Rebecca's nursing school graduation. Nathaniel had been watching them all along, a ghost in their lives. A video file caught her attention, dated just 3 weeks before Nathaniel's death. With trembling fingers, she clicked play. Nathaniel Richardson's face filled the screen. He looked tired, worry lines etching his forehead, but his eyes, so like Mikey's, were clear and determined. Rebecca, he began, his voice sending an unexpected wave of emotion through her. If you're watching this, then things have progressed as I feared. I've been tracking Harrison's movements, and he's getting closer to discovering your existence, and more importantly, Mikey's. Nathaniel ran a hand through his dark hair, a gesture so familiar it made Rebecca's chest ache. There's so much I need to tell you and so little time. The most important thing, the reason Harrison will come after Mikey, isn't just the money or the company. It's what we built the company on. Project Archangel. He leaned closer to the camera, his voice dropping as if afraid of being overheard even in this recorded message. My grandfather didn't create our encryption technology from nothing. He stole it from a government project he worked on during the Cold War. The algorithm that forms the backbone of Richardson Technologies' security systems was originally developed for nuclear launch codes. But it had a backdoor, a deliberate weakness built into its architecture that allowed those who knew the master key to access anything protected by it. Rebecca felt the blood drain from her face. Richardson Technologies secured banking systems, government databases, military installations around the world. Our company's success was built on a lie, Nathaniel continued. My father expanded the business knowing full well that our security had a fatal flaw. Harrison knows too, and he's been selling access to the highest bidders, hostile governments, criminal organizations. I've been working to patch the weakness without exposing the company, but Harrison found out. Nathaniel's eyes darkened with emotion. I believe he's planning to have me killed. If you're seeing this, he probably succeeded. But I've created a fix-a-patch that closes the back door permanently. It's in the safe along with evidence of Harrison's crimes. The safe will open to your fingerprint. I obtained a sample from your apartment doorknob years ago. I'm sorry for the invasion of privacy, but it was necessary. He paused, seeming to struggle with his next words. I never stopped loving you, Rebecca. Leaving you and Mikey was the hardest thing I've ever done. I told myself it was to protect you, and that was partly true, but I was also a coward, afraid of dragging you into my family's darkness. Now I've done exactly that, and I can only hope you'll forgive me someday. Nathaniel's image leaned back, his professional demeanor returning. The files on this computer will explain everything. The evidence against Harrison is comprehensive. Take it to Elizabeth Chen at the Justice Department, only her. She can be trusted. And Rebecca, tell Mikey about me someday. Not the Richardson that the world knew, but the Nate you knew. That was the real me. The video ended, leaving Rebecca staring at a blank screen, her mind reeling with implications. Not just an inheritance dispute, but a national security threat. Not just a family fortune, but a technological fraud that had compromised systems worldwide. Nathaniel hadn't just left Mikey money, he'd left him the responsibility of correcting a generational wrong. Mommy, Mikey tugged at her sleeve. I'm bored. Can we go now? Rebecca blinked, pulled back to the present. Not yet, sweetie. Mommy needs to look at a few more things. Why don't you draw a picture? She rummaged in her bag for his coloring book and crayons, setting him up in the corner of the unit while she continued her investigation. The family history folder contained documents dating back to the 1950s, chronicling Samuel Richardson's work on classified projects at Los Alamos. Photos showed a stern-faced man in a lab coat standing alongside other scientists whose names Rebecca recognized from history books. One image particularly caught her attention, Samuel shaking hands with a military general, both men smiling broadly as they stood before a banner that read, Project Archangel Securing America's Future. Financial records revealed the staggering scope of Richardson Technologies' reach and the fortune that Harrison stood to lose if the backdoor vulnerability became public knowledge. The company's stock would plummet, contracts would be voided, lawsuits would follow. Billions would evaporate overnight. More than enough motive for murder. Rebecca clicked on contingency plans, finding detailed instructions for what she should do next. Nathaniel had thought of everything: safe houses, emergency contacts, financial arrangements for her and Mikey. He'd created new identities for them, complete with documentation. He'd established offshore accounts that Harrison couldn't touch. He'd even arranged for security personnel to protect them, though she had yet to be contacted by anyone. As she read through Nathaniel's meticulous plans, a notification popped up on screen. The computer had detected an intrusion attempt on its network connection. Someone was trying to hack into the system remotely. Rebecca's pulse quickened. Had she been followed? Had Harrison somehow tracked the memory card's activation? She needed to move quickly now. Following Nathaniel's instructions, she approached the safe and placed her palm on the scanner. It hummed briefly before turning green, the heavy door swinging open to reveal several items, a sealed envelope labeled for Elizabeth Chen evidence, an external hard drive, a handgun with ammunition, and a stack of cash bound with a rubber band. Rebecca took everything, stuffing the items into her bag except for the gun, which she regarded with uncertainty. She'd never fired a weapon in her life, had never even held one. But Mikey's safety had to come first. After checking that the safety was on, she added it to her bag as well. Time to go, Mikey, she called, gathering his coloring supplies. Our adventure is moving to a new place. But I'm not done with my picture, he protested, holding up a colorful drawing of what appeared to be a dragon flying over a building that looked suspiciously like their apartment. You can finish it later, Rebecca promised, helping him into his jacket. We need to hurry now. She copied the most critical files to a new memory card and pocketed it, then initiated the computer's self-destruct sequence as outlined in Nathaniel's instructions. The system would wipe itself clean, leaving no trace of the sensitive information it contained. As they prepared to leave, Rebecca heard voices outside the storage unit, men's voices too close for comfort. Check every unit if you have to, a commanding voice ordered. Richardson's tracker shows the memory card was activated in this facility. Rebecca's blood ran cold. She pulled Mikey behind the filing cabinet, signaling for him to stay quiet. His eyes widened in fear, but he nodded, clutching his dinosaur to his chest. The guard says a woman and kid came in earlier, another voice reported, headed to the back section. Find them, the first voice snapped. Harrison wants the woman alive if possible, but the priority is any evidence she might have found. And the watch. He was very clear about recovering the watch. Footsteps approached their unit, accompanied by the sound of doors being wrenched open along the row. Rebecca's mind raced. The main entrance was blocked. The storage unit had no windows, no alternate exit. They were trapped. Unless... She looked up at the ventilation grate near the ceiling. Large enough for Mikey, possibly for her if she contorted herself. But how to reach it, the filing cabinet? If she could move it beneath the vent, they might have a chance. Mikey, she whispered, kneeling to his level, we're going to play a special game. Like hide and seek, but we have to be extra quiet. Those men outside are looking for us, but we're not going to let them find us. Okay. Mikey nodded solemnly, fear giving way to determination in his young face. Like ninjas. Exactly like ninjas, Rebecca confirmed, surprised by his composure. Super silent ninjas. Working as quietly as possible, Rebecca pushed the filing cabinet beneath the vent, its metal feet scraping softly against the concrete floor. The voices outside grew closer. 2 units away now, she had minutes at most. Standing on the cabinet, Rebecca removed the ventilation grate, peering into a dusty metal shaft that appeared to lead toward the rear of the facility. Large enough barely, it would have to do. Mikey first, she whispered, lifting him up. Crawl straight ahead until Mommy tells you to stop. Don't make any noise. Mikey nodded, clutching his dinosaur as he disappeared into the duct. Rebecca grabbed her bag, listening as the men reached the unit beside theirs. No time left. She hoisted herself up, squeezing into the shaft with painful effort, pulling the grate loosely back into place behind her. The ventilation duct was claustrophobic, barely wide enough for her shoulders. Dust tickled her nose, threatening a sneeze she desperately suppressed. Ahead, Mikey moved silently, following her instructions perfectly. Rebecca's heart swelled with pride, even as fear threatened to overwhelm her. Below, she heard the storage unit door rolling open, followed by cursing. Someone's been here, a voice called out. The computer's still warm. They can't have gone far. The vents, another voice immediately responded. Check the vents. Rebecca froze, then urgently whispered to Mikey, faster, baby. We need to move faster now. They crawled frantically through the metal maze, Rebecca guiding them based on her mental map of the facility. If her calculations were correct, this shaft should lead toward the rear exit, or at least close enough to give them a chance. Behind them, she heard metallic clanging as someone removed the grate in their unit. A flashlight beam penetrated the darkness, sweeping through the shaft. They had seconds at most before they were spotted. A junction appeared ahead, one path continuing straight, another branching to the right. Rebecca made a split-second decision. Right, Mikey. Turn right. The beam of light missed them by inches as they rounded the corner. The new passage sloped downward, growing narrower as they progressed. Rebecca's shoulders scraped painfully against the metal walls, but she pushed forward, focusing on Mikey's safety rather than her discomfort. Distant shouts indicated their pursuers had discovered their escape route. The hunt was intensifying. Rebecca's mind raced through contingency plans. Even if they escaped the facility, where could they go? Home was compromised. She had no close friends in Boston who wouldn't ask questions she couldn't answer. The police, without understanding the full scope of Harrison's influence, she couldn't risk it. Harrington, the attorney. He was her only option now. A faint light appeared ahead as the duct approached an external vent. Rebecca could see glimpses of the facility's rear lot through the slats. They'd need to time this perfectly. Mikey, stop here, she whispered, catching up to him. When I open this, we're going to jump down and run as fast as we can to the street. No stopping, no looking back. Just like the racing game we play at the park. Understand? Mikey nodded, his face serious. I'm really fast, Mommy. You sure are, baby. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Rebecca kicked the vent grate with all her strength, sending it clattering to the ground outside. She helped Mikey through first, then squeezed her own body through the opening, dropping about 6 feet to the pavement below. Pain shot through her ankle as she landed, but adrenaline dulled the sensation as she grabbed Mikey's hand and ran. The rear lot opened onto a quiet street lined with similar industrial buildings. Rebecca headed toward the main road visible a block away where traffic and people might provide some cover. Behind them, shouts erupted as their escape was discovered. "There, the woman and kid!" A gunshot cracked the air, the bullet pinging off a metal dumpster near them. Rebecca's blood turned to ice. They weren't just trying to catch them, they were willing to shoot a woman with a child in broad daylight. "Faster, Mikey," she urged, half carrying him now, as they raced toward the street. A sleek black SUV screeched around the corner ahead, cutting off their path. Rebecca skidded to a halt, frantically looking for another escape route. An alley to their left offered the only option, though it led away from the populated areas she'd been aiming for. As she turned toward the alley, the SUV's door flew open. Rebecca braced herself for another threat, shielding Mikey with her body. But instead of one of Harrison's men, a different figure emerged, a tall man with close-cropped dark hair and a face marked by a jagged scar running from temple to jaw. "Ms. Morgan," he called, his voice deep and commanding. "Get in if you want to live." Rebecca hesitated, clutching Mikey tighter. The man could be working for Harrison, a more sophisticated trap. "Nathaniel sent me," the man added urgently, pulling out a phone and showing her the screen, a photo of himself standing alongside Nathaniel, both in hiking gear on what appeared to be a mountain summit. "Marcus Reynolds, head of security. We have about 10 seconds before those men reach us." Another gunshot decided the matter. Rebecca ran for the SUV, bundling Mikey into the back seat before jumping in herself. The vehicle accelerated before her door was fully closed, tires squealing as they pulled away from the storage facility. "Put these on," Marcus instructed, handing her a baseball cap and sunglasses from the console. "And get down below the windows until we're clear of the area." Rebecca complied, pulling Mikey down with her. "How did you find us? How did you know we'd be there?" "Nathaniel's watch has a tracking chip," Marcus explained, navigating through traffic with practiced efficiency. "Activated when you used it to access the storage unit. I've been monitoring since his death, waiting for the signal. So has Harrison." "Those men, they were going to kill us," Rebecca said, the reality of their situation sinking in fully. Marcus's expression hardened as he checked the rearview mirror. "Harrison Richardson doesn't leave loose ends, especially ones that threaten his empire." "Where are you taking us?" "Somewhere safe," Marcus assured her. "A place Nathaniel prepared. We'll talk more once we're secure." Rebecca held Mikey close as the SUV wove through Boston's streets, leaving behind the life she'd known and heading toward an uncertain future. The weight of Nathaniel's legacy, both financial and moral, pressed upon her with newfound urgency. Her son wasn't just a wealthy heir now. He was the key to exposing a technological fraud that had compromised national security for decades. And Harrison Richardson would do anything to keep that secret buried. As they crossed the Charles River, leaving Boston's skyline behind, Rebecca's hand found the pocket watch still secure in her jacket. More than an inheritance, Nathaniel had left them a mission and enemies powerful enough to kill for it. The game had escalated far beyond what she'd imagined just 24 hours ago. The true exploration had only just begun. The Berkshire Mountains cast long shadows across the winding forest road as Marcus Reynolds' SUV climbed steadily into the wilderness. They had been driving for nearly 3 hours, leaving the Boston metropolitan area far behind. Mikey had fallen asleep in the back seat, his small body curled around his dinosaur exhaustion, finally claiming him after the day's terror. Rebecca watched the landscape transform from suburban sprawl to dense forest, her mind struggling to process everything that had happened since opening that manila envelope just 24 hours ago. "How much farther?" she asked, breaking the silence that had settled between them. Marcus checked the rearview mirror, a habit Rebecca had noticed he performed exactly every 42 seconds. "Another 20 minutes. The property is isolated 3 miles from the nearest neighbor, accessible only by this road. Nathaniel chose it specifically for its defensibility." "You knew about us all along," Rebecca said, not a question, but an accusation. "You knew while Nathaniel was alive that he had a son." Marcus's scarred face remained impassive, but something flickered in his eyes. Regret, perhaps? Or something deeper? "Yes, I was one of only 3 people who knew." Myself, Walter Harrington, and Nathaniel's personal physician. Why didn't you ever make contact all those years we struggled? Those weren't my orders, Marcus replied, his tone softening slightly. Nathaniel was explicit, maintain distance, ensure security never engaged directly. The financial support was the compromise he allowed himself. And now, Rebecca pressed, what are your orders now that he's gone? Marcus's grip tightened on the steering wheel. To protect you and the boy at all costs, to help you deliver the evidence against Harrison to Elizabeth Chen, and then to ensure you both disappear, new identities, new lives completely disconnected from the Richardson name and fortune. Rebecca processed this, gazing at the passing trees. Did Nathaniel truly believe we'd never be safe even with Harrison exposed? The Richardson empire extends beyond Harrison, Marcus explained. Business partners, political connections, silent investors, people who've benefited from the encryption backdoor for decades. They'd never allow Mikey to control the company. They'd find ways to eliminate the threat. So what's the point? Rebecca's voice cracked with unexpected emotion. Why expose Harrison at all if we'll never be safe? Why not just take the money and run? Marcus slowed the vehicle as they approached a narrow bridge spanning a rushing stream. His expression was thoughtful, calculating. Because Nathaniel believed in redemption. He wanted his son to inherit a clean legacy, not one built on lies and stolen technology. And because every day that backdoor exists, national security remains compromised. The SUV crossed the bridge and turned onto an even narrower dirt road barely visible among the trees. And what do you believe in, Mr. Reynolds? Rebecca asked, studying his profile. Marcus was silent for a long moment. I believe in honoring my promises, he finally said, and I promised Nathaniel I would protect his family. The cabin appeared ahead, nestled in a clearing surrounded by towering pines. Unlike the rustic hunting lodges Rebecca had imagined, this was a modern structure of glass, stone, and timber, beautiful but intentionally designed to blend into the landscape. Solar panels glinted on the south-facing roof, and a satellite dish was discreetly mounted on one side. Home sweet home, Marcus said without irony, as he pulled up to the entrance. For the next few days, at least. Rebecca gently woke Mikey as Marcus performed a perimeter check, his movements efficient and practiced. The boy rubbed his eyes, disoriented but curious about their new surroundings. Are we camping, Mommy? He asked, peering through the window at the forest. Something like that, sweetie, Rebecca replied, helping him from his seat. A special kind of camping in a house in the woods. Marcus returned, nodding his approval of whatever security measures he'd verified. All clear. Let's get you both inside before dark. The cabin's interior was surprisingly comfortable, open-plan living areas. Modern kitchen, 2 bedrooms, and an office space dominated by communications equipment and monitors. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered stunning views of the forest and mountains beyond, though Rebecca noticed the glass had an unusual thickness to it. Bulletproof, Marcus confirmed, following her gaze. The entire structure is reinforced. Panic room in the basement, generator backup, 6 months of supplies, satellite communications unconnected to any network Harrison could access. Nathaniel called it his fortress of solitude. He built all this for us, Rebecca asked, overwhelmed by the level of preparation. He built it hoping you'd never need it, Marcus corrected, setting down their bags. But he wasn't one to leave things to chance. While Marcus secured the perimeter and activated various security systems, Rebecca settled Mikey in the smaller bedroom, unpacking his few belongings and setting up his dinosaur on the pillow. The boy was surprisingly adaptable, treating the sudden relocation as an adventure rather than a flight for their lives. His resilience both amazed and worried her. Children shouldn't have to be this strong, this young. Mr. Marcus has a scary face, Mikey observed, as Rebecca helped him into pajamas found in the dresser, new clothes perfectly sized, as if Nathaniel had anticipated every need. But I think he's nice. Why do you think that? Rebecca asked, curious about her son's perception. Mikey considered this with the serious expression he adopted when thinking deeply. His eyes aren't scary, and he drives really fast. Rebecca couldn't help but smile. Is fast driving your criteria for niceness now? Only when the bad men are chasing us, Mikey replied with impeccable logic. After tucking Mikey in with promises of exploring the woods tomorrow, Rebecca found Marcus in the kitchen, efficiently preparing a simple meal. The domesticity of the scene, this dangerous man chopping vegetables at a countertop, struck her as surreal. He's asleep, Marcus asked without looking up. Almost. New places excite him. Rebecca leaned against the counter, suddenly aware of her exhaustion. The clothes in the dresser, Nathaniel's instructions, updated every 6 months as the boy grew. You've never called him by his name, Rebecca observed. Always the boy. Marcus paused, knife hovering over an onion. Distance is a professional habit. Names create attachment. Attachment creates vulnerability. And yet you're cooking us dinner. A ghost of a smile touched Marcus's scarred lips. Even assets need to eat, Ms. Morgan. Rebecca, she corrected. If we're going to be hiding in the woods together, I think we can use first names. Marcus nodded once returning to his methodical food preparation. Rebecca watched him work, questions bubbling to the surface that she'd been too shocked or frightened to ask earlier. How did you get that scar? She finally asked. The knife stilled momentarily. Harrison Richardson gave it to me, or rather he ordered it given to me. Rebecca's breath caught. You worked for Harrison for 3 years. Marcus's voice was clinically detached, as if discussing someone else's life. I was hired muscle ex-military with combat experience and few moral qualms. Perfect for Harrison's less public ventures. What changed? Marcus slid the chopped vegetables into a pan, the sizzle filling the silence before he answered. Harrison suspected Nathaniel was planning to expose the back door. He sent me to convince Nathaniel to abandon the idea. It didn't go as planned. His hand unconsciously traced the jagged line that ran from temple to jaw. Nathaniel fought back better than expected, got me with a letter opener. Rebecca winced, imagining the scene. And then he did something unexpected. For the first time, genuine emotion crept into Marcus's voice. Instead of finishing me or calling the police, he helped me. Stop the bleeding. Talk to me. Why would he help someone sent to hurt him? That's what I asked. Marcus stirred the pan's contents, his gaze distant. He said he saw something in me worth saving. Offered me a choice, a real job, legitimate work protecting him instead of threatening others for his brother. And you took it. Best decision I ever made. Marcus's simple statement carried the weight of a life transformed. Now you should eat something. Tomorrow will be challenging. They ate in relative silence, both too exhausted for further conversation. Afterward, Rebecca took a long shower, letting the hot water wash away the grime and fear of the day. As steam filled the bathroom, she caught her reflection in the mirror, still recognizably herself, but with something harder in her eyes, something that hadn't been there yesterday. Motherhood had made her strong, but the past 24 hours had forged something different, a steel resolve she hadn't known she possessed. When she emerged dressed in borrowed clothes that somehow fit perfectly, she found Marcus at the communication station, speaking quietly into a secured line. Harrington's condition is critical but stable, he reported as she approached. Harrison's men did a number on him, but he managed to contact Elizabeth Chen before they got to him. She's gone to ground waiting for us to reach out with the evidence. When do we do that? Rebecca asked. Not yet. We need to verify the evidence package is complete, understand exactly what we're dealing with. Marcus gestured to the external hard drive they'd recovered from the storage unit. And you need training. Training in what? Self-defense, weapons, evasion techniques. Marcus's expression was deadly serious. Harrison won't stop coming. If something happens to me, you need to be able to protect yourself and Mikey. Rebecca wanted to protest, to insist that surely delivering the evidence would end this nightmare. But the memory of bullets flying past them at the storage facility silenced her objections. This wasn't a legal dispute about inheritance. It was a fight for survival against people willing to kill a mother and child in broad daylight. When do we start? She asked instead. Tomorrow. Get some rest. Rebecca retired to the master bedroom, checking on Mikey one last time before climbing into the king-size bed that dominated the room. Another piece of Nathaniel's detailed planning a family suite he'd never expected to share with them. The thought brought unexpected tears to her eyes, grief for what might have been mixing with anger at the choices he'd made. She fell asleep clutching the pocket watch, its steady ticking a reminder of time's relentless march and the secrets still hidden within its mechanism. Dawn broke over the mountains, painting the forest in golden light. Rebecca woke to the sound of Mikey's excited chatter from the main room. Following the voices, she found her son perched at the kitchen counter, watching in fascination as Marcus prepared breakfast, one hand at his other arm, methodically field stripping, and reassembling a handgun. "And then the bullets go in here?" Mikey was asking, pointing to the magazine. "That's right." Marcus confirmed, his tone patient but matter-of-fact. "But remember what I said, you never touch this, ever. Not even if you think it might help your mom. Understand?" Mikey nodded solemnly. "Because I'm too little and it's dangerous." "Exactly." Rebecca cleared her throat, making her presence known. Marcus acknowledged her with a nod, continuing his weapons check without apology or embarrassment. "Coffee's fresh," he offered, sliding a mug toward her. "We start in 30 minutes." Training began in a cleared space behind the cabin. Marcus proved to be a demanding but effective instructor, showing Rebecca basic self-defense moves designed for someone of her size and strength. She learned how to break, holds, deliver incapacitating strikes to vulnerable areas, and use everyday objects as improvised weapons. By midday, her muscles ached, but she felt a growing confidence in movements that had been foreign to her hours before. "You're a quick study," Marcus observed during a water break. "Most people take days to master those techniques." "I've spent years restraining delirious patients and navigating hospital emergencies," Rebecca replied, wiping sweat from her brow. "Body mechanics isn't new to me, just the intent behind it." After lunch with Mikey, occupied by a collection of toys found in a cabinet, more evidence of Nathaniel's thorough preparation, they moved on to firearms training. Rebecca had never held a gun before yesterday, and her hands trembled slightly as Marcus placed a 9mm pistol in her palm. "Respect it, but don't fear it," he instructed, adjusting her grip. "It's a tool, nothing more. Like a scalpel or a defibrillator, dangerous in untrained hands, potentially life-saving in yours." By late afternoon, Rebecca could load, aim, and fire with basic proficiency. Her shots wouldn't win any competitions, but at close range she could hit what she aimed at, a skill she prayed she'd never need to use. As dusk approached, they sat on the cabin's deck watching Mikey explore the edge of the clearing under their vigilant eyes. Rebecca massaged her sore arms, processing everything she'd learned. "Why are you really helping us?" she asked suddenly. "And don't say because you promised Nathaniel. People break promises all the time when it gets dangerous." Marcus considered her question, his gaze fixed on the distant mountains. "When I was 18, fresh out of foster care and eager to prove myself, I joined the Army. Special Forces, eventually. I was good at it, the discipline, the purpose, the clarity of mission. After 3 tours in Afghanistan, I came home with skills perfectly suited for violence and not much else." He flexed his hand, studying the calluses. "Harrison Richardson offered good money for those skills, no questions asked. I told myself I was just providing security, but that wasn't true. I was enforcing his will through intimidation, and sometimes worse. And Nathaniel changed that. He reminded me of the man I wanted to be before the world hardened me." Marcus's voice carried a rare vulnerability. "Said everyone deserves a second chance to choose a different path. I'm helping you because every day I do is another day I honor that choice." Rebecca absorbed this, seeing Marcus in a new light, not just a protector assigned to them, but a man seeking redemption through service. Before she could respond, a perimeter alarm sounded from inside the cabin, its shrill tones shattering the peaceful evening. Marcus was on his feet instantly, gun drawn. "Get Mikey and get inside, now." Rebecca raced to her son, scooping him up mid-protest and rushing toward the cabin. Marcus covered their retreat, scanning the surrounding forest with predatory focus. Once inside, he locked down the structure, checking monitors that displayed feeds from cameras positioned around the property. "3 vehicles approaching from the access road," he reported, voice tight with tension. "Harrison's found us." "How?" Rebecca clutched Mikey to her chest, heart pounding. "I thought this place was secure." "It was." Marcus's expression darkened as he checked another monitor. "Someone gave him the location. Someone with access to Nathaniel's contingency plans." "Harrington." "No, he's still unconscious in the hospital." Marcus activated a series of switches, and metal shutters began descending over the windows, transforming the glass retreat into a fortress. "There's only one other person who knew about this place." A sinking feeling settled in Rebecca's stomach. "Who?" "Patricia Richardson, Nathaniel's mother." The revelation hit Rebecca like a physical blow. His mother betrayed him. The Richardson family loyalty has always been complicated. Marcus moved efficiently through the cabin, gathering weapons and supplies. Patricia has played both sides for years, maintaining a relationship with Nathaniel while never quite cutting ties with Harrison. Nathaniel trusted her with certain information, hoping maternal instinct would outweigh family politics. Clearly he was wrong, Rebecca said bitterly. A new alarm sounded more urgent than the first. Marcus checked the monitors again, his expression grim. They're setting up a perimeter. Professional team tactical gear. Harrison's not taking chances this time. Rebecca set Mikey down, kneeling to his eye level. Sweetie, remember the special hiding game we talked about? It's time to play. Go to your room and get Rex, then meet me at the special door. Okay. Mikey nodded, eyes wide, but trusting as he ran to collect his dinosaur. Rebecca turned to Marcus, fear and determination warring in her expression. The panic room you mentioned, will it hold them off? For a while, but we can't stay there indefinitely. Marcus checked his weapons with practiced efficiency. The tunnel system leads to an exit half a mile into the forest, emerges near the stream we crossed. There's an emergency vehicle hidden there, old Jeep untraceable. So we run. Again. Rebecca's voice held a note of despair. We survive, Marcus corrected. That's the mission now. Everything else is secondary. A window exploded inward despite the metal shutters. Glass shards spraying across the living room as a tear gas canister bounced across the floor, spewing noxious clouds. Marcus kicked it back through the broken window, then grabbed Rebecca's arm, pulling her toward the hallway. They're moving faster than I expected. We need to get to the panic room now. Rebecca ran to meet Mikey, who stood clutching his dinosaur in the hallway, fear finally overtaking his brave facade. She lifted him into her arms as Marcus led them to what appeared to be a linen closet. Inside, he pressed a hidden panel, revealing a reinforced door that slid open with a pneumatic hiss. The panic room was compact, but well-equipped communications equipment, monitors showing camera feeds from around the property, supplies, weapons, and a hidden door that presumably led to the escape tunnel. Marcus sealed the entrance behind them, activating additional security measures from a control panel. How long before they breached the cabin? Rebecca asked, setting Mikey down on a small cot in the corner. Minutes, not hours, Marcus replied, checking the monitors. They have equipment to cut through the shutters. Once inside, they'll sweep room by room until they find the panic room entrance. And then, standard procedure would be to pump gas through any ventilation system forced us out. Marcus pointed to an oxygen supply system on the wall. We have countermeasures, but they're temporary at best. Rebecca watched the monitors in horror as masked figures systematically breached the cabin, moving with military precision through the space they'd occupied just minutes before. These weren't security guards or private investigators. These were mercenaries, hired killers with advanced tactical training. We need to use the tunnel before they locate us, Marcus decided, gathering essential supplies into a backpack. The longer we wait, the greater the risk they'll secure the exit point. Rebecca nodded, helping Mikey into a light jacket found among the panic room supplies. What about the evidence, the hard drive? Already packed, Marcus assured her, patting the backpack, along with emergency cache IDs and the watch. Everything else is replaceable. As they prepared to enter the tunnel, one of the monitors caught Rebecca's attention. A new figure had entered the cabin, not a masked soldier, but a distinguished-looking woman in her 60s, silver hair elegantly styled, wearing a camel hair coat that seemed absurdly out of place amid the tactical gear surrounding her. Who is that? Rebecca asked, though she already suspected the answer. Marcus glanced at the screen, his expression hardening. Patricia Richardson, Nathaniel's mother, your son's grandmother. Rebecca stared at the woman who had betrayed her own son, now helping hunt her grandson. What kind of family had Nathaniel come from? What kind of darkness had he tried to escape by living as Nate, the software engineer in a modest Boston apartment? Let's go, she said firmly, taking Mikey's hand. I've seen enough of the Richardson legacy for one day. The tunnel was narrow and low-ceilinged, forcing Marcus to hunch as he led the way with a tactical flashlight. Rebecca followed, helping Mikey navigate the uneven ground. The passage had been professionally constructed concrete, lined, ventilated with emergency lights at regular intervals that activated as they passed motion sensors. How far does this go? Rebecca whispered, the oppressive darknesses beyond their light raising claustrophobic fears she'd never known she had. Half-mile more or less, Marcus replied, his voice hushed. Nathaniel had it built by a contractor who thought he was installing a high-end wine cellar. The man never knew the tunnel continued beyond the initial chamber. And they had covered perhaps a quarter of the distance when alarms sounded from the direction of the panic room. Marcus tensed, increasing his pace. They found the entrance. We need to move faster. Rebecca lifted Mikey into her arms, ignoring her body's protests after the day's training exertions. The boy clung to her neck, his dinosaur clutched firmly in one small hand, remarkably quiet despite the obvious danger. He seemed to intuitively understand the need for silence. The tunnel began to slope upward, the air growing fresher as they approached the exit. Marcus paused at a junction, consulting a small device that appeared to be monitoring radio frequencies. They're coordinating to secure the cabin and surrounding area, he reported grimly. But they haven't identified the tunnel exit yet. We might have a window. The exit was concealed within what appeared to be an abandoned hunter's blind, camouflaged among dense foliage near the stream. Marcus checked the surroundings with practiced caution before signaling Rebecca to follow him outside. The night air felt gloriously open after the confinement of the tunnel, but brought new dangers. Darkness that could hide watchers' open ground. They would need to cross the sound of the stream, potentially masking approaching threats. The jeep is hidden approximately 200 yards downstream, Marcus whispered, pointing to the right. We'll follow the water to minimize tracks. Stay low, move only when I signal, and if anything happens to me, keep heading downstream until you find a fallen pine across the water. The vehicle is concealed in the hollow beyond it. Rebecca nodded, setting Mikey down but keeping a firm grip on his hand. We stay together, she insisted. All of us. Marcus didn't argue, leading them into the shallow edge of the stream, the cold water soaking their shoes as they crept forward. The forest was eerily quiet, the usual nocturnal sounds silenced by the human intrusion. In the distance, they could see flashlight beams sweeping through the trees as Harrison's men expanded their search perimeter. They had covered perhaps half the distance to the hidden vehicle when a radio crackled somewhere ahead of them. Marcus froze, signaling for absolute stillness. Rebecca pulled Mikey close, covering his mouth gently with her hand, though the boy seemed to understand the need for silence. A beam of light swept across the stream 30 yards ahead, accompanied by low voices. Perimeter Team 3, check in. 3 here, nothing at the north quadrant. Proceeding to sweep along the stream as ordered. Copy that. Mother Richardson wants the watch recovered intact. Priority after securing the targets. The light began moving in their direction following the stream bed. There was nowhere to hide in the shallow water, and the banks offered minimal cover. Marcus made a quick decision, pulling them toward a cluster of boulders at the stream's edge. Behind these, he whispered. Stay low, stay silent. I'll create a diversion. No, Rebecca hissed, grabbing his arm. We stay together. If we all run, they'll spot us, Marcus countered gently but firmly, removing her hand. Trust me, Rebecca, I know what I'm doing. Before she could protest further, Marcus slipped away, moving through the darkness with uncanny silence. Rebecca huddled with Mikey behind the boulders, her heart hammering so loudly she feared it might give away their position. The approaching guard was now clearly visible, a man in tactical gear with night vision goggles, rifle at the ready, moving methodically along the stream. Suddenly, a cascade of pebbles clattered down the opposite bank, drawing the guard's attention. As he turned toward the sound, Marcus emerged from the shadows behind him, one powerful arm wrapping around the man's throat in a precise chokehold. The guard struggled briefly before going limp, his equipment making minimal noise as Marcus lowered him carefully to the ground. After securing the unconscious guard with his own restraints, Marcus returned to Rebecca and Mikey, retrieving the guard's radio and night vision equipment. He's alive, just unconscious, he assured Rebecca, noting her shocked expression. I don't kill unless absolutely necessary. With the guard's night vision goggles, their progress accelerated. Marcus led them confidently through the darkness, avoiding twigs and dry leaves that might betray their presence. The fallen pine appeared ahead, a massive trunk bridging the stream, its root system creating a natural hollow on the far bank. True to Marcus's description, a mud-splattered jeep was concealed within the hollow, covered with a camouflage tarp and branches. Working quickly, they uncovered the vehicle, Marcus checking it over with professional thoroughness before retrieving keys from a magnetic box hidden in the wheel well. Get in, he directed, helping Rebecca secure Mikey in the back seat. We need to put distance between us and this area before they realize their perimeter's been breached. The Jeep's engine started with a muted rumble specially modified to reduce noise. Marcus navigated carefully, using only the dimmest running lights until they reached a narrow Forest Service road nearly a mile from the cabin. Only then did he increase their speed, the vehicle bouncing over the rough terrain as they fled deeper into the Berkshire wilderness. "Where are we going now?" Rebecca asked, checking on Mikey, who had improbably fallen asleep despite the bumpy ride exhaustion finally claiming him. "Another safe house," Marcus replied, his attention on the treacherous road. "One that even Patricia doesn't know about." Nathaniel maintained several contingency locations, each known to a different trusted associate. This one was our fail-safe, known only to him and me. "How far?" "About 4 hours across the New York state line. Remote cabin in the Adirondacks." Marcus glanced at her briefly. "You should rest while you can. Tomorrow we begin Phase 2. "What's Phase 2? "Training continues. We analyze the evidence on the hard drive, and we make contact with Elizabeth Chen." Marcus's expression was resolute in the dashboard's dim glow. "It's time to bring the fight to Harrison." Rebecca leaned back in her seat, physical and emotional exhaustion threatening to overwhelm her. In just 2 days, her entire life had been upended, her identity transformed from struggling single mother to hunted heiress guardian, from healthcare provider to potential warrior. And through it all, the weight of Nathaniel's legacy pressed upon her. Not just the money, but the moral burden of correcting a generations-old wrong that had compromised national security and built a fortune on deception. As the jeep wound through the dark forest, carrying them toward yet another temporary refuge, Rebecca's hand found the pocket watch in her jacket. Its steady ticking echoed the beating of her own heart, resilient, determined, refusing to surrender to fear or despair. Whatever came next, she would face it with the same strength that had sustained her through years of single motherhood and medical emergencies. For Mikey's sake, for Nathaniel's redemption, and increasingly for her own sense of justice in a world turned suddenly violently unfair. The night deepened around them, but dawn would eventually come. And with it, new challenges, new dangers, and perhaps finally a path toward resolution of the Richardson family's secret that had shattered their lives and set them on this desperate journey. Behind them, the cabin that had briefly been their sanctuary burned against the night sky, a beacon of Harrison Richardson's determination to eliminate all evidence of his brother's legacy and the nephew who threatened his empire. The hunt continued, but the hunted were fighting back. The Adirondack safe house proved to be far more modest than the Berkshire cabin, a weathered hunting lodge nestled among ancient pines, accessible only by a rutted dirt track that challenged even the Jeep's rugged suspension. No modern amenities here, just sturdy log walls, basic furnishings, and the kinds of security measures that required no electricity, heavy shutters, reinforced doors, and strategic sight lines to all approaches. "Nathaniel called this going dark," Marcus explained as he carried their meager supplies inside. "No digital footprint, no satellite uplink, nothing Harrison's tech people could trace. Just isolation and vigilance." Rebecca settled Mikey in the small loft bedroom, grateful that exhaustion had kept him asleep during the transfer from car to house. The past 3 days had been a crucible, transforming them all. She hardly recognized herself anymore. The cautious nurse who measured medications in precise doses had become a woman who could field strip a pistol and plan escape routes with tactical precision. In the main room, Marcus had already established a command center of sorts, maps spread across a rustic table, weapons arranged with military precision, and the hard drive they'd recovered from the storage unit connected to a rugged laptop that ran on battery power. "What's our timeline?" Rebecca asked, joining him at the table. "Tight," Marcus replied, not looking up from the screen. "Harrison will have people monitoring all channels to Elizabeth Chen. We need to establish contact without exposing our location." "And the evidence, is it what Nathaniel claimed?" Marcus nodded grimly. "More extensive than even I realized. Harrison hasn't just been selling backdoor access. He's been using it himself to manipulate markets, blackmail officials, even compromise national security protocols. The man's practically committed treason." Rebecca absorbed this, the weight of what they carried growing heavier. No wonder he's willing to kill a child to protect it. The Richardson legacy. Marcus's voice held bitter irony. 3 generations of technological brilliance perverted by greed and power. They worked through the night, Rebecca analyzing financial records, while Marcus compiled the security breaches attributed to the backdoor vulnerability. The evidence painted a damning picture, not just of Harrison's crimes, but of a systemic corruption that had infected government agencies, financial institutions, and military installations worldwide. Dawn broke clear in cold sunlight filtering through pine branches to dapple the cabin's worn floorboards. Mikey woke with the sunrise, his resilient spirit undimmed by their circumstances. To him, this was still an adventure, a camping trip with his mother and their new protector. "Can I go outside today?" he asked hopefully over a breakfast of canned peaches and powdered eggs. "I want to see if there are bears." "Not today, buddy," Rebecca answered, tousling his dark curls. "We need to stay inside where it's safe." "But Mr. Marcus isn't afraid of bears." Mikey insisted, his perception of their guardian's capabilities apparently limitless. He could fight them off. A rare smile touched Marcus's scarred face. "Even I don't pick fights with bears, Mikey. But how about this? I'll teach you some tracking skills later, inside the cabin." This compromise satisfied the boy, who happily returned to his breakfast. Rebecca caught Marcus's eye over Mikey's head, a silent communication passing between them, gratitude for his patience with her son, understanding of the difficult day that lay ahead. By mid-morning, they had formulated a plan to contact Elizabeth Chen. The Justice Department attorney was their best hope for legitimately exposing Harrison's crimes, but reaching her without compromising their location presented significant challenges. "I'll need to go into town," Marcus announced, checking the ammunition in his sidearm. "There's a secure landline at the ranger station about 15 miles from here. I can call Chen's private number, arrange a meeting on neutral ground." "You're leaving us," Rebecca couldn't keep the alarm from her voice. "Just for a few hours. The cabin's location is secure and you're trained now." Marcus met her gaze directly. "You can handle yourself if necessary." Rebecca wanted to protest but recognized the logic. Someone had to make contact, and Marcus was better equipped to detect surveillance or traps. "What if something goes wrong? What if you don't come back?" Marcus opened a drawer in the kitchen, removing a sealed envelope. "Contingency plan. If I'm not back by sunset, open this. It contains coordinates to another safe house and contact information for Diana Reynolds." "Diana?" "My sister, former FBI counterintelligence. One of the few people I trust completely." Marcus's expression softened slightly. "She'll get you and Mikey to safety if I can't." The revelation that Marcus had family, a human connection beyond his professional persona, struck Rebecca powerfully. She'd begun to see beyond his scarred exterior to the man beneath, but pieces of his life remained mysteries to her. "You never mentioned a sister before," she said quietly. "Never relevant to the mission," he replied, but his tone lacked conviction. "Diana and I, we have a complicated history, but she's good people. The best." Rebecca accepted the envelope, hoping she'd never need to open it. "Be careful out there." Marcus nodded once, then knelt to Mikey's level. "I need you to be the man of the house while I'm gone, okay? Take care of your mom. Keep watch at the windows, and remember what I taught you about staying quiet." Mikey's expression turned solemn as he absorbed the responsibility. "I promise, Mr. Marcus, I'll protect Mommy." The simple declaration, delivered with a child's earnest determination, seemed to affect Marcus deeply. He ruffled Mikey's hair with uncharacteristic gentleness before standing to gather his gear. At the door, he paused, turning back to Rebecca. "If I'm not back by sunset, we'll follow the contingency plan," she assured him, fighting the surge of fear his words provoked. "But you'll be back." Something unspoken passed between them, an acknowledgement of the bond that had formed amid danger and shared purpose. Then Marcus was gone, the sound of the Jeep's engine fading into the forest stillness. The hours crawled by with excruciating slowness. Rebecca kept Mikey occupied with games and improvised lessons, all while maintaining vigilant watch through the cabin's windows. The forest remained peaceful, unnervingly so, with only occasional wildlife movements disturbing the carpet of pine needles surrounding their sanctuary. By late afternoon, Rebecca's anxiety had reached a fever pitch. The sun would set in less than 2 hours and still no sign of Marcus. Had Harrison's men captured him? Was he lying wounded somewhere in the vast wilderness? Or had he simply abandoned them, deciding the risk was too great? No. She rejected that last possibility immediately. Whatever else Marcus Reynolds might be, he was a man who honored his promises. If he hadn't returned, something had prevented him. As the light began to fade from the sky, Rebecca reluctantly retrieved the contingency envelope. She was about to break the seal when a sound froze her in place, Myers on the dirt track approaching the cabin. She quickly positioned Mikey in the predetermined hiding spot beneath the trapdoor in the pantry. Remember not a sound until I come for you, she whispered, pressing a kiss to his forehead before closing the concealed door. Taking up position beside the front window, pistol ready, Rebecca peered cautiously through a gap in the shutters. Relief flooded through her as the familiar Jeep appeared Marcus at the wheel. But her relief was short-lived as she noted his rigid posture and the presence of another vehicle following closely behind a sleek black sedan that screamed government agency. Rebecca's mind raced. Had Marcus been captured? Was he leading enemies to their door? Should she run with Mikey through the back exit as they'd planned? Before she could decide, Marcus exited the Jeep, moving with his usual fluid grace, showing no signs of duress. He approached the cabin, hands visible, face set in what she'd come to recognize as his neutral professional expression. "Rebecca," he called, his voice carrying clearly. "It's clear. We have a visitor. Elizabeth Chen." The sedan's door opened and a petite Asian-American woman emerged, her tailored pantsuit and no-nonsense bob, projecting authority despite her small stature. She surveyed the cabin with shrewd eyes before following Marcus to the door. Rebecca unlocked the reinforced entrance, pistol still in hand, but lowered now, ready if needed. Marcus entered first, subtly positioning himself between the two women, a protective habit she'd noticed before. "Ms. Morgan," the newcomer said, extending her hand. "I'm Elizabeth Chen, Department of Justice. I've been waiting a long time to meet you." Rebecca accepted the handshake cautiously. "You've known about me. Nathaniel contacted me 3 months ago." Chen explained, her direct gaze assessing. "Said he had evidence of national security concerns involving Richardson Technologies, but needed time to compile everything. He mentioned a contingency plan involving his son's mother if anything happened to him." "And you believe we have this evidence now?" Chen nodded. "Walter Harrington managed to get a message to me before Harrison's men put him in the hospital. Said the watch had been activated, that you and the child were in possession of the complete package." Rebecca glanced at Marcus, who gave an almost imperceptible nod of reassurance. "I need to get my son first," she said, moving toward the pantry. Mikey emerged from his hiding place with admirable calm, immediately seeking out Marcus as if to verify his well-being, before allowing Rebecca to introduce him to their visitor. "Hello, Michael," Chen said, her professional demeanor softening slightly. "You look very much like your father." Mikey regarded her solemnly. "Did you know my daddy?" "I did," Chen replied. "He was a brave man who wanted to fix something that was broken, just like your mom is trying to do now." While Rebecca settled Mikey with his dinosaur and a book they'd found on the cabin's sparse shelves, Marcus and Chen spread the evidence across the table: digital files, financial records, photographs, and technical documents detailing the encryption backdoor and its exploitation. "This is extensive," Chen murmured, examining a particularly damning set of records showing Harrison's sales of backdoor access to foreign entities. "Enough to put Harrison Richardson away for multiple lifetimes." "And the others?" Marcus asked. "The government officials who looked the other way, the corporations that benefited." Chen's expression hardened. "Justice will be blind, Mr. Reynolds, no matter how highly placed the accomplices might be." Rebecca wanted to believe her, but years of struggling against systems designed to protect the wealthy and powerful had made her skeptical. "What happens now to us, I mean?" "Witness protection, most likely," Chen replied, her gaze moving between Rebecca and Mikey. "New identities, relocation, ongoing security. The Richardson fortune would be held in trust for Michael, managed by appointed guardians until he's of age." "And Richardson Technologies?" Marcus asked. "That's more complicated. The company itself isn't criminal, despite its foundation on stolen technology. Thousands of innocent employees, legitimate contracts. The government would likely appoint trustees during the transition, possibly break it up into smaller entities." Rebecca absorbed this, her thoughts turning to Nathaniel's letter. He hadn't just wanted justice. He'd wanted redemption, a clean legacy for his son. "What if there were another option?" she asked slowly. "A way to fix the backdoor vulnerability without destroying the company entirely?" Chen raised an eyebrow. "I'm listening." "Nathaniel created a patch," Rebecca explained, retrieving a small USB drive from her pocket, the final piece of evidence they'd recovered from the storage unit safe. "A permanent fix for the encryption flaw. He wanted Mikey to inherit a company built on security, not exploitation." Chen accepted the drive, turning it over thoughtfully in her hand. "That would certainly change the calculus. The national security implications alone. Their discussion was interrupted by a sharp crack from outside, the unmistakable sound of a rifle shot. Marcus moved with blinding speed, extinguishing the lights and positioning himself at the window. Perimeter breach, he reported tersely. Multiple hostiles approaching from the north. Professional tactical team. Harrison, Rebecca asked, already moving to gather Mikey. Unlikely, Chen replied, drawing her own weapon with practiced ease. Harrison's resources are being monitored. This is someone else. The other beneficiaries, Marcus growled. The people who've been exploiting the back door for years. They can't afford for this evidence to go public either. Rebecca felt cold dread settle in her stomach. They'd been so focused on Harrison that they'd underestimated the wider conspiracy, the government agencies, corporations, and criminal organizations that had built their operations around the Richardson Technologies' fatal flaw. We need to move, Marcus decided, retrieving a go-bag from beneath the sofa. The back tunnel leads to a ravine. If we can reach it before they surround the cabin completely, we might have a chance. Chen nodded grimly, securing the evidence in her briefcase. My vehicle is compromised. They must have tracked me here. Another shot shattered the cabin's window, sending glass shards spraying across the floor. Rebecca grabbed Mikey, shielding him with her body as they moved toward the kitchen and the concealed exit Marcus had shown her earlier. Down, Marcus shouted as multiple rounds tore through the cabin's wooden walls. Rebecca dropped to the floor, pulling Mikey beneath her, the thunder of gunfire punctuated by the splintering of wood and breaking of glass. Then abruptly, silence fell. Rebecca raised her head cautiously, finding Marcus crouched near the front window, Chen positioned at the rear. They're repositioning, Marcus reported. Standard containment formation. They know we're armed and expecting us to attempt escape through the rear. How many? Chen asked, checking her weapon. I count 8, possibly more in reserve. Marcus's expression was calculating mine, working through scenarios with tactical precision. They're not trying to kill us yet. They want the evidence first. Rebecca clutched Mikey closer, feeling his small body trembling against hers. What do we do? Marcus's gaze met hers, and in that moment, something passed between them, an unspoken acknowledgement of what might lie ahead. You take Mikey through the tunnel. Chen and I will create a diversion to draw their attention. No, Rebecca protested. We stay together. Rebecca, Marcus's voice gentled, this isn't just about survival anymore. It's about getting that evidence to the right people, about finishing what Nathaniel started. Before she could argue further, a new voice called from outside, amplified by a megaphone. Attention occupants. This is Special Agent Raymond Keller, National Security Agency. We have the building surrounded. Surrender the Richardson evidence, and you will not be harmed. Chen's expression darkened. Keller's not NSA, he's private sector now. Works for TechSec International, one of the primary beneficiaries of the backdoor access. So much for government oversight, Marcus muttered. The voice continued. We know you're in there, Ms. Chen. Your Justice Department credentials won't help you here. This is a matter of national security classified beyond your clearance level. Rebecca saw genuine anger flash across Chen's usually composed features. They're trying to bury this under the guise of national security. Classic playbook, label it classified, make it disappear. Ms. Morgan, the voice shifted focus, sending a chill through Rebecca. We have no quarrel with you or your son. Surrender the evidence and you'll both be allowed to access the Richardson inheritance without interference. Refuse and we cannot guarantee your safety. The crude attempt at manipulation only strengthened Rebecca's resolve. These people, these powerful, shadowy figures who had benefited from corruption for decades, thought they could buy her compliance with the very money they'd helped steal. The same money that had cost Nathaniel his life. They're stalling, Marcus observed. Bringing in reinforcements, probably. We need to move now. The decision crystallized in Rebecca's mind with surprising clarity. Chen, can you get the evidence out through official channels if you reach your office? The attorney nodded. I have protocols in place. Dead drops trusted colleagues. If I can get clear of this location, I can ensure the evidence reaches the right people. Then that's the priority, Rebecca said with newfound authority. Marcus and I will create the diversion. You take Mikey and the evidence through the tunnel. Rebecca, Marcus began, but she cut him off. He'll go with her because she's a stranger in a suit like his pediatrician. He trusts authority figures. Rebecca knelt before her son, framing his face with her hands. Mikey, this nice lady is going to take you on a special adventure like we talked about. Remember our practice runs. Mikey's dark eyes, so like his father's, were solemn with understanding beyond his years. The hiding game, where you find me later. That's right, baby. Rebecca fought to keep her voice steady. Ms. Chen will keep you safe, and Mommy and Mr. Marcus will find you very soon. You need to be brave and quiet, just like we practiced. Mikey clutched his dinosaur tighter. Promise you'll find me. I promise, Rebecca whispered, pulling him into a fierce embrace. I will always find you. The plan came together with brutal efficiency. Chen would take Mikey and the evidence through the tunnel to the ravine, then follow a marked trail to a Forest Service road where she could potentially flag down help or hike to the nearest ranger station. Meanwhile, Rebecca and Marcus would create the impression that all four occupants were attempting to escape in the Jeep, a noisy, visible diversion to draw attention away from the tunnel exit. 10 minutes, Marcus instructed Chen as she prepared to enter the tunnel with Mikey. That's how long we need to keep their attention. After that, you move as fast as possible. No waiting, no looking back. Chen nodded, checking her weapon one final time before accepting Rebecca's backpack, now filled with the essential evidence and survival supplies. I'll protect him with my life, she promised, her eyes meeting Rebecca's with fierce sincerity. Rebecca believed her. Whatever political games might be played in Washington offices, Elizabeth Chen had shown herself to be a woman of integrity, someone Nathaniel had trusted with his most damning secrets. The final goodbye was brief by necessity, but Rebecca poured a lifetime of love into her last embrace with Mikey. Be good for Mrs. Chen, Bai, she whispered against his hair. Remember that Mommy loves you more than anything in the whole world. Then they were gone, disappearing into the dark passage beneath the cabin, taking with them both the evidence that could bring down an empire and the child who represented its future. Marcus moved with grim purpose, gathering weapons and preparing improvised distractions. We'll need to make them believe all four of us are attempting to reach the Jeep, he explained, rigging flashbang devices salvaged from his tactical gear. Sound and movement are key. Rebecca checked her pistol with hands that were surprisingly steady, the surreal clarity of crisis mode settling over her. And if we don't make it to the Jeep, Marcus paused, meeting her gaze directly. Then we lead them away from the tunnel exit for as long as possible. Give Chen and Mikey the best chance to clear the area. The unspoken implication hung in the air. This might be a one-way mission. Rebecca found herself strangely at peace with the possibility. I spent years saving lives in the ER, she said quietly. Never thought I might have to lay down my own. That's not the plan, Marcus replied firmly. But if it comes to it, I know. Rebecca's voice held unexpected strength. For Mikey, for Nathaniel's redemption, for the truth. A moment of understanding passed between them, not just professional allies now, but something deeper forged in the crucible of shared danger and purpose. The megaphone crackled to leaf again outside. This is your final warning. Surrender the evidence or we will take action. Marcus checked his watch. 3 minutes until Chen and Mikey should reach the tunnel exit. Ready. Rebecca nodded, gripping her weapon with newfound determination. Ready. The diversion began with calculated chaos, flashbangs detonating at the front of the cabin, followed by concentrated gunfire through the windows to suggest multiple shooters inside. Marcus had rigged speakers to play recorded voices, creating the illusion of frantic communication between the cabin's occupants. As expected, the attacking force focused their attention on the apparent threat, returning fire and calling for reinforcements at the cabin's perimeter. Using the confusion to their advantage, Marcus and Rebecca slipped through a rear window, staying low and using the gathering darkness for cover as they worked their way toward the Jeep. Rebecca's heart thundered in her chest, every sense hyper-alert as they navigated between trees freezing in place whenever searchlights swept near their position. Marcus moved with predatory grace beside her, his hand occasionally touching her arm to guide or warn. They had almost reached the vehicle when the first shot rang out, a sniper positioned in the trees above them. The bullet struck the ground inches from Rebecca's foot, sending dirt spraying upward. Marcus reacted instantly, pushing her behind the cover of a massive pine trunk as more shots followed. They've spotted us, he growled, returning fire to suppress the sniper while calculating their next move. The Jeep is exposed. We need a new plan. Rebecca scanned their surroundings, remembering the maps Marcus had shown her of the area. The stream, she suggested. If we can reach it, we can follow it downstream away from the tunnel exit. Draw them in the opposite direction. Marcus nodded approvingly. Half a mile west. We'll need covering fire to break from this position. Working together with the coordination of a practiced team, they executed a leapfrog retreat, one providing suppressive fire, while the other moved to new cover, then reversing roles. The attacking force pursued exactly as they had hoped, drawing attention away from the ravine where Chen and Mikey would be emerging. The stream appeared ahead, a silver ribbon in the gathering darkness. They splashed into the cold water, using it to mask their trail as they moved rapidly downstream. Pursuit sounds faded temporarily behind them. They'd bought precious minutes for Chen and Mikey to escape. How far to the ranger station? Rebecca asked between labored breaths as they paused behind a fallen tree. 3 miles, Marcus replied, checking his remaining ammunition with practiced efficiency. But they'll have vehicles on the Forest Service roads. Our best bet is to keep them occupied in these woods as long as possible. A sudden explosion rocked the night, the Jeep Rebecca realized with a start. They'd rigged it with the remaining flashbangs, and someone had triggered them. That's our cue, Marcus said grimly. They'll think we were attempting to reach the vehicle when it exploded. Standard procedure would be to search for bodies or survivors. So we keep moving, Rebecca concluded. Lead them further away. They pressed on through the darkening forest, occasionally leaving deliberate signs of passage to maintain the pursuers' interest. Marcus's tactical experience proved invaluable, his knowledge of evasion techniques keeping them just ahead of the search teams that combed the woods with increasing frustration. As they crested a small rise, Marcus suddenly stiffened, pulling Rebecca down beside him. Through a gap in the trees below, they could see a clearing where several vehicles had assembled tactical teams, receiving new orders from a central figure Rebecca recognized with a shock of pure hatred. Harrison. She whispered the name, a curse on her lips. Even at this distance, Harrison Richardson's commanding presence was unmistakable, tall and broad-shouldered, like his brother, but with none of Nathaniel's warmth. His gestures were sharp, authoritative, as he directed the team surrounding him. He came himself, Marcus observed, his voice cold with controlled rage. Must be getting desperate. Rebecca stared at the man who had ordered her son hunted, who had likely arranged his own brother's murder, who had corrupted a technology meant to protect into a tool for exploitation and control. In that moment, her fear transformed into something harder, more dangerous. We need to get closer, she decided. Hear what they're planning. Marcus studied her face in the dim light, recognizing the shift in her demeanor. That's tactically unsound, he noted, but without real objection. So is letting him coordinate the hunt for my son, Rebecca countered. Knowledge is power, isn't that what Nathaniel believed? Let's get some. They worked their way carefully down the slope, using every technique Marcus had taught her for silent movement. The growing darkness helped conceal them as they approached the edge of the clearing, positioning themselves behind dense undergrowth within earshot of Harrison's command center. Don't care about the woman or Reynolds, Harrison was saying, his cultured voice carrying clearly. The priority is the child and the evidence. Chen is likely heading for the ranger station. Cut her off before she can make contact with anyone. And if the boy is with her, sir, asked one of the tactical team leaders. Harrison's pause chilled Rebecca to the bone. Collateral damage at this point. The evidence cannot reach the public. The casual dismissal of her child's life ignited something primal in Rebecca's chest. Her finger tightened on her weapon's trigger, a red haze threatening the edges of her vision. Marcus's hand closed over hers, steady and calming. Not like this, he whispered, his breath warm against her ear. We need to warn Chen. Reality reasserted itself. Chen and Mikey were heading into a trap. All their sacrifice would be meaningless if Harrison's men intercepted them before they could reach safety. The radio, Rebecca breathed, gesturing to the communications equipment they'd salvaged from the cabin. Can we contact her? Marcus shook his head. Too risky. They're monitoring all frequencies. But there might be another way. He pointed to the vehicles assembled in the clearing, including Harrison's personal Range Rover, slightly separated from the others, with a single guard posted nearby. A diversion within a diversion, Marcus explained, his eyes gleaming with dangerous purpose. We draw Harrison's security detail away from him, commandeer his vehicle, and intercept Chen before Harrison's men can reach her. The plan was audacious, borderline suicidal, but Rebecca found herself nodding in agreement. How do we start? Marcus's scarred face creased in what might have been a smile under different circumstances. With chaos, my specialty. The next minutes unfolded like a fever dream of tactical precision. Marcus created diversions on the far side of the clearing, small explosions using ammunition, and found materials giving the impression of a firefight breaking out in the forest. As Harrison's security team responded, Rebecca circled around to approach the Range Rover from the blind side. The lone guard never saw her coming, a testament to Marcus's training and her own desperate determination. A precise strike to the nerve cluster at the base of his neck, exactly as practiced, and he crumpled silently to the ground. Rebecca secured the guard's weapon and radio, then slipped into the vehicle's driver's seat, finding the keys in the ignition, the arrogance of a man who never expected to be the target rather than the hunter. She started the engine just as Marcus emerged from the forest edge, sprinting toward her with several armed men in pursuit. He dived into the passenger seat, bullets pinging off the armored bodywork as Rebecca accelerated away from the clearing, following the rough track that led toward the ranger station. Chen's communication device has GPS, Marcus explained between labored breaths, pulling out a small tracker from his pocket. Part of Nathaniel's security protocols. They should be approximately 2 miles ahead of us moving on foot. Rebecca pushed the powerful vehicle to its limits on the uneven forest road, her focus absolute. Behind them, pursuit was organizing Harrison's men piling into their vehicles, giving chase to the stolen Range Rover. There, Marcus pointed ahead to 2 small figures moving rapidly along the road, Chen carrying Mikey, who clung to her back as she ran with determined strides. Rebecca flashed the headlights in a pattern Marcus had established earlier, 3 quick, 2 long, a signal that identified them as friendly. Chen slowed, recognition dawning as the Range Rover pulled alongside her. Harrison's men are right behind us, Marcus explained as Chen bundled Mikey into the back seat. They're setting up an ambush at the ranger station. I suspected as much, Chen replied grimly, sliding in beside Mikey. The radio traffic I've been monitoring suggested a perimeter operation. What's the alternative extraction point? Rebecca asked, accelerating it again as lights appeared in the rearview mirror, their pursuers gaining ground. Chen pulled out a satellite phone, one that operated on secure military frequencies. I've already contacted my backup team. There's a clearing suitable for helicopter extraction 3 miles northeast of here. Then that's our target, Marcus decided, consulting the vehicle's GPS system. But we'll need to lose our tail first. What followed was a harrowing chase through the dark forest, Rebecca pushing the Range Rover to its engineering limits as Marcus navigated identifying turnoffs and service roads that might throw off their pursuers. Behind them, Harrison's security team pursued with relentless determination, occasionally drawing close enough for gunfire to shatter the vehicle's rear window. In the back seat, Chen shielded Mikey with her body, the boy's eyes wide with terror, but remarkably silent, understanding even at his young age that noise would only make their situation more dangerous. 1 mile to the extraction point, Marcus announced, as they bounced along an increasingly narrow track. But we've still got at least 2 vehicles in pursuit. Rebecca made a split-second decision, recalling the terrain maps they'd studied earlier. The ravine crossing ahead the bridge is only rated for light vehicles. Marcus caught her meaning immediately. The Range Rover will make it across. Their tactical trucks might not. Exactly. She pushed the accelerator to the floor, the powerful engine roaring as they approached the wooden bridge spanning a deep ravine. The structure groaned ominously as they crossed timbers, cracking but holding under the Range Rover's weight. In the rearview mirror, Rebecca watched with grim satisfaction as the first pursuing vehicle attempted to follow a heavy tactical truck carrying at least 6 armed men. The bridge held for perhaps 3 seconds before collapsing with a thunderous crack, sending the truck plummeting into the ravine below. That won't stop Harrison for long, Marcus warned. He'll have air support other routes. It doesn't need to be long, Chen replied, checking her satellite phone. Extraction team is 2 minutes out. The clearing appeared ahead, a natural meadow amidst the dense forest, just large enough for a helicopter landing. Rebecca brought the Range Rover to a skidding halt at the edge, already hearing the distant thrum of rotor blades approaching. We made it, she breathed, almost disbelieving. Not yet, Marcus cautioned, scanning the tree line with professional paranoia. Stay in the vehicle until the helicopter is on the ground. The sound of rotors grew louder, and a powerful spotlight swept the clearing, confirming it was clear for landing. Rebecca felt hope surge through her chest as the sleek black helicopter descended, kicking up swirls of dust and pine needles. Go, Marcus ordered as the aircraft touched down its side door, sliding open to reveal armed men in tactical gear, Chen's extraction team. Get Mikey and the evidence on board. Rebecca turned to him, suddenly understanding his intention. We're all going. Marcus shook his head, his expression set in familiar lines of duty and sacrifice. Someone needs to hold off Harrison's reinforcements. Give the helicopter time to clear the area. No, Rebecca said firmly, gripping his arm. We've come this far together. We finish this together. Mikey needs you. She paused, the truth finally acknowledged. I need you. Something shifted in Marcus's scarred face, a vulnerability she glimpsed only in rare, unguarded moments. Before he could respond, Chen interrupted from the backseat. Both of you need to move now, she ordered, her professional demeanor momentarily cracking to reveal genuine concern. The evidence means nothing if you don't survive to testify. The decision was made for them as gunfire erupted from the furthest edge. Harrison's remaining forces had found an alternate route to the clearing. Bullets pinged off the Range Rover's armor as they abandoned the vehicle, Rebecca carrying Mikey, while Marcus provided covering fire. The distance to the helicopter seemed infinite, each step an eternity, as bullets tore through the air around them. Chen reached the aircraft, first handing off the evidence backpack to her team, before turning to provide additional covering fire for Rebecca and Mikey. They were halfway across the clearing when Rebecca felt the impact, a searing pain in her left shoulder that nearly caused her to lose her grip on Mikey. She stumbled, but kept moving, driven by maternal determination stronger than any physical pain. Rebecca! Marcus's voice carried over the gunfire and rotor noise as he saw her falter. He was at her side, instantly supporting her weight while maintaining his protective fire toward the tree line. I'm okay, she gasped, though the spreading warmth down her back suggested otherwise. Get Mikey to the helicopter. We all go, Marcus insisted, echoing her earlier declaration as he half-carried, half-dragged her toward the waiting aircraft. The final yards were a blur of noise and pain, Mikey's terrified cries mixing with the thunder of gunfire and the helicopter's deafening rotors. Then suddenly they were inside the door, sliding shut behind them as the pilot pulled pitch, the aircraft lifting away from the danger zone with stomach-dropping speed. Mom's hurt. Mikey's panicked voice cut through Rebecca's growing fog. Help her. Chen's team included a medic who immediately began assessing Rebecca's wound. Clean through and through, he reported clinically. Missed anything vital, but she's losing blood. Rebecca felt herself being laid flat, pressure applied to her shoulder as the helicopter banked sharply, executing evasive maneuvers to avoid potential ground fire. Through increasingly distant senses, she registered Mikey's small hand clutching hers, his tear-streaked face hovering above her. Stay with me, Mommy, he pleaded, his voice seeming to come from very far away. You promised to find me. I found you instead. The simple logic of her child's statement penetrated the encroaching darkness. She had promised. And Rebecca Morgan always kept her promises, especially to her son. I'm not going anywhere, baby. She managed, fighting against the pain and blood loss. Mommy just needs to rest her eyes for a minute. As consciousness slipped away, her last sensation was of strong, scarred hands joining her son's smaller ones, both holding on to her with fierce determination, anchoring her to a world she had fought so hard to protect. And in that moment, suspended between life and danger, Rebecca knew with absolute certainty that they had won. Not just survival, but something far more precious, the truth finally breaking free after decades of darkness. The Richardson family's secret was secret no longer. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, painting warm patterns across polished hardwood floors. The Oregon coastline stretched beyond the glass, rugged cliffs, descending to a pristine beach where waves crashed in timeless rhythm. 6 months had passed since the night they'd escaped Harrison Richardson's forces in a Justice Department helicopter, but Rebecca still sometimes woke in the night, heart pounding, convinced she could hear pursuit closing in. Coffee, Marcus appeared in the doorway, 2 steaming mugs in hand, his scarred face softened by the morning light. The jagged line from temple to jaw no longer seemed harsh to Rebecca. It had become simply another feature of a face she'd grown to cherish. Please, Brittany. She accepted the mug gratefully, turning back to the view. Mikey's still asleep. Out cold. That hike yesterday wore him out. Marcus joined her at the window, his shoulder brushing hers in a casual intimacy that still felt new. Hard to believe it's been 6 months. 6 months since Elizabeth Chen had unleashed what the media dubbed the Richardson Files upon the world. 6 months of congressional hearings, corporate meltdowns, and international diplomatic crises as the full extent of the encryption backdoor's exploitation came to light. 6 months of healing for Rebecca's gunshot wound, for Mikey's traumatic memories, and for the broken trust between citizens and institutions that had been compromised for decades. Harrison's sentencing is today, Rebecca noted, sipping her coffee. Marcus nodded. Chen called last night. The plea deal is finalized. 30 years, no possibility of parole in exchange for testimony against his government accomplices. Not enough, Rebecca murmured. No. Marcus agreed. But Chen says his cooperation has already led to indictments against 3 former NSA directors and a dozen corporate executives. The rot went deeper than even Nathaniel realized. The sprawling coastal home where they now lived had been one of Nathaniel's secret properties deeded to Mikey in a trust that had survived Harrison's attempt to seize his brother's assets. The irony wasn't lost on Rebecca. They had fled the Richardson fortune, only to end up living on Richardson land, protected by Richardson money. But this place felt cleansed somehow, unburdened by the family's dark legacy. The foundation board meeting is at 11, Rebecca said, changing the subject to something more hopeful. Diana sent over the final proposal for the scholarship program. Marcus's sister had proven to be everything he'd claimed: brilliant, trustworthy, and fiercely protective of her brother's newfound family. As a former FBI counterintelligence specialist, Diana Reynolds had taken over security for what was now officially called the Nathaniel Richardson Foundation, an organization dedicated to cybersecurity education and ethics. I still think we should name it after you, Marcus said, his free hand finding hers. You're the one who insisted we use part of Mikey's inheritance this way. Rebecca shook her head. Nathaniel deserves the credit. He wanted redemption, a legacy Mikey could be proud of. This is it, turning the family fortune toward protection instead of exploitation. The foundation had already funded security audits for dozens of vulnerable systems, established scholarships for ethical hackers, and created educational programs teaching digital privacy to children. Richardson Technologies itself, now under trustee management until Mikey came of age, had implemented Nathaniel's encryption patch, closing the backdoor permanently while maintaining the company's market position. Mom, Marcus, look what I found! Mikey's excited voice preceded him as he raced into the room, still in dinosaur pajamas, clutching something small and golden. It was under my pillow. Rebecca turned, smiling at her son's boundless morning energy. What's that, buddy? A secret compartment. Mikey held up Nathaniel's pocket watch triumphantly. I pressed this part and it opened. Rebecca exchanged a startled glance with Marcus. They'd thought all the watch's secrets had been discovered months ago. May I see? Marcus asked, kneeling to Mikey's level. The boy handed over the timepiece, pointing proudly to a tiny drawer that had opened in the watch's case, not the same compartment that had held the memory card, but a new one hidden within the intricate engravings. Inside lay a folded slip of paper and a small key. What does it say? Mikey asked, bouncing with curiosity as Marcus carefully unfolded the note. The handwriting was unmistakably Nathaniel's, the same elegant script from his letters. Marcus read aloud, "For Michael on his 4th birthday. Some treasures aren't meant to be found right away. Now that the storms have passed, it's time for the final piece. The key opens the lighthouse study at the Cliff House. What you'll find there is, meant for both of you, the true inheritance I always hoped to share." Today is my birthday, Mikey exclaimed, eyes wide with wonder. How did Daddy know? Rebecca felt her throat tighten with emotion. Even now, months after his death, Nathaniel was still reaching out to them, still guiding their path with his meticulous planning. Your father was a very smart man. She managed, stroking Mikey's dark curls so like Nathaniel's. He thought of everything. Can we go to the lighthouse now? Mikey pleaded. Please. The lighthouse stood on the property's northern edge, a decorative structure built into the cliffside that Mikey had been fascinated with since their arrival. Rebecca had assumed it was simply an architectural folly, never suspecting it might contain yet another of Nathaniel's secrets. After breakfast, she promised. Birthday pancakes first, then adventure. An hour later, they made their way along the cliff path, Mikey running ahead with the boundless energy of a child now free from hiding and fear. The past months had seen him blossom, his nightmares fading, replaced by the simple joys of a normal childhood, school friends, beach explorations, and the secure knowledge that he was safe and loved. The lighthouse was a striking structure of whitewashed stone and blue-trimmed windows, functional in appearance, though it had never guided ships. Its study, a small circular room at the top, had always been locked, a mystery they had respectfully left unexplored, assuming it contained nothing more than storage. Mikey was already at the door when they caught up, practically vibrating with excitement, as Marcus inserted the tiny key into the lock. It turned with a satisfying click, and the heavy wooden door swung open to reveal a perfectly preserved office, not a storage room at all, but a sanctum of sorts. Sunlight poured through windows, offering a panoramic view of the Pacific. A mahogany desk dominated the space, its surface bare, except for a single envelope bearing their names. Bookshelves lined the circular walls, filled with volumes on ethics, philosophy, and technology. A comfortable reading chair sat angled toward the ocean, as if waiting for someone to return. "It's Daddy's special place," Mikey whispered, with the intuitive understanding of children, his earlier exuberance giving way to reverence. "Yes," Rebecca agreed softly. "I think it is." Marcus picked up the envelope, handing it to Rebecca. "This should be yours to open." With fingers that trembled slightly, she broke the seal, unfolding several pages of Nathaniel's distinctive handwriting. "Rebecca and Michael," she read aloud. "If you're reading this, then the darkest chapter of the Richardson legacy has closed, and a new one is beginning. This room was to be my sanctuary in retirement, a place where perhaps I might have finally found the courage to reconnect with you both properly, to be the father and partner I should have been from the beginning." Rebecca paused, composing herself before continuing. "Instead, I hope it becomes something else, a place of transition between what was and what could be. The Richardson fortune was built on stolen technology and exploited secrets. The company grew through deception and compromise. But Michael's inheritance need not carry those stains. In the desk drawer, you'll find two items. First, the deed to this property, now legally transferred to Michael's trust with you as trustee. This place was never part of the official Richardson holdings. I purchased it under a separate identity, untainted by family money. It is truly clean. The second, you'll find my personal journal chronicling my journey from complicity to awakening. It's not always pleasant reading, but it's honest. Someday when Michael is old enough, it might help him understand that redemption is always possible, no matter how far one has strayed. Rebecca, I have no right to ask anything of you, but if I may make one final request, tell Michael about me someday. Not the Richardson that the world knew, or the coward who left you both, but the man who loved you, however imperfectly. The man who found the courage too late to do what was right. And to whoever stands with you now, protecting my family, when I could not, you have my eternal gratitude and respect. You've done what I failed to do, and there is no greater service. With love and hope for the future, you'll build together." Nathaniel's silence filled the circular room as Rebecca finished reading, broken only by the distant crash of waves against the cliffs below. Mikey leaned against her side, absorbing the words, even if he couldn't fully comprehend their weight. Marcus stood slightly apart, giving them space to process this final message. Rebecca moved to the desk, opening the drawer to find exactly what Nathaniel had described: legal documents and a leather-bound journal. But there was a third item as well, a small velvet box containing a simple platinum ring, elegant and understated, with a note tucked beneath it. The question I never found the courage to ask. Perhaps someone braver than I will have the honor. Rebecca's eyes found Marcus, who had moved to the window, his scarred profile silhouetted against the vast Pacific. In the months since their escape, their relationship had evolved gradually, carefully, two damaged people finding unexpected healing in each other's company. They hadn't rushed, mindful of Mikey's need for stability and their own need to build something genuine from the ashes of crisis. But in this moment, surrounded by Nathaniel's final gift, Rebecca felt a certainty she hadn't known was possible again. This lighthouse study wasn't just a memorial to what might have been, it was permission to embrace what could be. "Mikey," she said softly, "why don't you go explore the bookshelves? I bet there are some cool things your dad collected." As the boy happily began examining the shelves, Rebecca approached Marcus, the velvet box held loosely in her palm. "He thought of everything," she said quietly, showing him the ring. "Even this." Marcus's expression shifted, vulnerability breaking through his usual controlled demeanor. What are you saying, Rebecca? I'm saying Nathaniel was right about many things, including you. You are the braver man. She held his gaze steadily, and I think he'd approve of what we found together. Marcus took the box with reverent eyes, studying the ring before meeting her eyes again. Are you sure there's no rush, no obligation? What we have is real, she finished for him. More real than anything I've known. We've been tested by fire, Marcus. We've seen each other at our most vulnerable and our strongest. What more proof do we need? A rare, full smile transformed Marcus's face, softening the scar that told the story of his own redemption. I never thought I'd find this, he admitted. A family, a purpose beyond survival. Neither did I. Rebecca glanced at Mikey, now absorbed in a book of maps he'd discovered. But here we are. Here we are, Marcus echoed, taking her hand. No grand gestures, no flowery speeches, just the simple, profound connection of two people who had walked through darkness and emerged into unexpected light. 3 weeks later, they married in a small ceremony on the beach below the lighthouse. Diana served as maid of honor, Chen as witness, and Mikey proudly carried the rings Nathaniel's for Rebecca and a matching band for Marcus. The foundation board members attended, along with a few new friends from the coastal community that had welcomed them without questions about their past. As sunset painted the Pacific in shades of gold and crimson, Rebecca stood at the water's edge, with her new husband and son watching the tide erase their footprints in the sand. What do you think happens now? She asked, not really expecting an answer. We live, Marcus said, simply, his arm around her waist. We build something good from what we've been given. We remember, but we don't look back. Mikey, who had been examining shells at their feet, suddenly looked up with the solemn expression he adopted when considering life's deeper questions. Mommy Aston, he said, holding up a perfect sand dollar. I think Daddy sent this for you, from heaven. Rebecca knelt, accepting the delicate gift from her son's small hand. Why do you think that, baby? Because it's shaped like his watch, Mikey explained with a child's perfect logic. Round and special. And it was waiting right here for us to find it. Marcus knelt beside them, his scarred face gentle in the fading light. Your dad was good at leaving treasures for people to find, he agreed. Important things in unexpected places. Like us, Mikey said with startling insight. We're Daddy's treasure too, right? Rebecca felt tears well in her eyes as she pulled her son close. Yes, Mikey. And now we're Marcus's treasure too. And you're both mine, Marcus added, his voice rough with emotion as he embraced them. The dangerous inheritance that had brought them together, the money, the technology, the legacy of secrets had been transformed into something else entirely, a family forged by choice rather than blood, united by love rather than obligation. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Rebecca looked up at the lighthouse on the cliff, now their lighthouse, their beacon. Inside its study, Nathaniel's journal waited on the desk, not just a record of the past, but a guide to the future they would build together. A future where the Richardson name would stand for protection rather than exploitation, for truth rather than deception. The true inheritance, after all, wasn't the fortune or the company or even the coastal property where they now stood. It was the chance to begin again, to write a new story unbound by the mistakes of the past. And in that moment, watching the first stars appear above the Pacific, Rebecca knew with absolute certainty that they would make it a story worth telling.